Hey guys, welcome back. We are on the afternoon session of the hidden body murder trial, and nobody came back but Judy, but that's all right. I think the judge told the jury to be back at 1:15, which is my 2:15, but it looks like he's already started giving them instructions. But closing arguments has not started yet. So we haven't missed the important things. Hey, Aurora! You changed from spooky to Christmas. Okay. Come on. Why is my computer so slow?
Charges that the defendant, Matthew E. Pahl, on or about Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022, in the town of Delafield, Waukesha County, Wisconsin, did hide a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime. To this charge, the defendant has entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of the offense charged beyond a reasonable doubt. The statutory definition of the crime. Section 940.11 sub 2 of the Criminal Code of Wisconsin is violated by one who hides a corpse with intent to conceal a crime. Conviction for the state must prove by evidence which
Spaniard, what are you doing?
Beyond a reasonable doubt that the following two elements are present. Number one, the defendant hid a corpse. To hide means to put or keep out of sight. Number two, the defendant hid a corpse with intent to conceal a crime. This requires that the defendant acted with the purpose to conceal a crime. You cannot look into a person's mind to find out intent. Intent must be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all the facts and circumstances in this case bearing upon intent. If you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant guilty. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty.
Oh.
In reaching your verdict, examine the evidence with care and caution. Act with judgment, reason, and prudence. Defendants are not required to prove their innocence. The law presumes every person charged with a commission of an offense to be innocent. This presumption requires a finding of not guilty unless in your deliberations you find it is overcome by evidence that satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. The burden of establishing every fact necessary to constitute guilt is upon the state. Before you can return a verdict of guilty, the evidence must satisfy you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty.
Sorry.
If you can reconcile the evidence upon any reasonable hypothesis consistent with the defendant's innocence, you must do so and return a verdict of not guilty. The term reasonable doubt means a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It is a doubt for which a reason can be given, arising from a fair and rational consideration of the evidence or lack of evidence. It means such a doubt as would cause a person of ordinary prudence to pause or hesitate when called upon to act in the most important affairs of life. A reasonable doubt is not a doubt which is based on mere guesswork or speculation. A doubt which arises merely from sympathy or from a fear to return a verdict of guilty is not a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a doubt such as may be used to escape the responsibility of a decision. Defendant every benefit, while it is your duty to give the defendant the benefit of every reasonable doubt, you are not to search for doubt, you are to search for the truth. An information is nothing more than a written, formal accusation against a defendant charging the commission of one or more criminal acts. You are not to consider it as evidence against the defendant in any way. It does not raise any inference of guilt. Evidence is, first, the sworn testimony of witnesses, both on direct and cross-examination, regardless of who called the witness. Second, the exhibits the court has received, whether or not an exhibit goes to the jury room. Third, any facts to which the lawyers have agreed or stipulated, or which the court has directed you to find. Anything you may have seen or heard outside the courtroom is not evidence. You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered and received at trial. The district attorney and the defense have stipulated or agreed to the existence of exclusively proved. In this case, the district attorney and the defense have stipulated to the following facts. In the first stipulation that I read to you, on August 20, 2022, the rainfall in the Waukesha/Pewaukee area was 0.50 inches. On August 25th, 2022, the rainfall in the Waukesha/Pewaukee area was 1.39 inches. On August 28th to 29th, 2022, the rainfall in the Waukesha/Pewaukee area was 0.34 inches. There was no other rainfall in the Waukesha/Pewaukee area between August 15th to. In the second stipulation, the parties agreed as follows: that during the search, K-9 Raven exhibited 2 changes. Deputy Willis stated that Detective LaFleur later confirmed the 2 vehicles K-9 Raven exhibited changes of behavior on were involved in fatalities. 3, that Attorney Galaviz became the attorney of record in this case at the beginning of April 2025. That at that time, no one in the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department or the Office of the District Attorney had a comprehensive list of the vehicles that were in the garage on September 19th, 2022. Next, that counsel for the defense made an open records request to the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. Next, that counsel for defense received reports related to the vehicles in the garage on September 19th, 2022 from the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. Next, that counsel prepared a summary which was substantially similar to Exhibit 610. That summary was provided to Ms. Pescador. Circumstantial evidence. It is not necessary that every fact be proved directly by a witness or an exhibit. A fact may be proved indirectly by circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is evidence from which a jury may logically find other facts according to common knowledge and experience. Circumstantial evidence is not necessarily better or worse than direct evidence. Either type of evidence can prove a fact. Whether evidence is direct or circumstantial, it must satisfy you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the offense before you may find the defendant guilty. Evidence has been presented regarding other conduct of the defendant for which the defendant is not on trial. Specifically, evidence has been presented that the defendant committed acts of domestic violence against Stephanie Pavlons in 2020 and 2021. If you find that this conduct did occur, you should consider it only on the issues of motive, intent, preparation or plan, absence of mistake or accident, context or background. You may not consider this evidence to conclude that the defendant has a certain character or a certain character trait, and that the defendant acted in conformity with that trait or character with respect to the offenses charged in this case. The evidence was received on the issues of motive, that is, whether the defendant has a reason to desire the result of the offense charged, intent, that is, whether the defendant acted with the state of mind that is required for the offense charged, preparation or plan, that is, whether the other conduct of the defendant was part of a design or scheme that led to the commission of the offense charged, absence of mistake or accident, that is, whether the defendant acted with the state of mind required for the offense charged, context or background, that is, to provide more complete presentation of the evidence relating to the offense charged. You may consider this evidence only for the purposes I have described, giving it the weight you determine it deserves. It is not to be used to conclude that the defendant is a bad person and for that reason is guilty of the offense charged. The state has introduced evidence of statements which it claims were made by the defendant. It is for you to determine how much weight, if any, to give to each statement. In evaluating each statement, you must determine three things: whether the statement was actually made by the defendant, only so much of a statement as was actually made by a person may be considered as evidence; whether the statement was accurately restated here at trial; whether the statement or any part of it ought to be believed. You should consider the facts and circumstances surrounding the making of each statement, along with all the other evidence in determining how much weight, if any, this statement delivers. Remarks of counsel are not evidence. If the remarks suggested certain facts not in evidence, disregard the suggestion. An exhibit becomes evidence only when received by the court. An exhibit marked for identification and not received is not evidence. An exhibit received as evidence whether or not it goes to the jury room. Attorneys for each side have the right and the duty to object to what they consider are improper questions asked of witnesses and to the admission of other evidence which they believe is not properly admissible. You should not draw any conclusions from the fact an objection was made. By allowing testimony or other evidence to be received over the objection of counsel, the court is not indicating any opinion about the evidence. You jurors are the judges of the credibility of the evidence. Disregard entirely any question that the court did not allow to be answered. Do not guess at what the witness's answer might have been. It itself suggested that certain information might be true. Ignore the suggestion and do not consider it as evidence. During the trial, the court has ordered certain testimony to be stricken. Disregard all stricken testimony. The weight of evidence does not depend on the number of witnesses on each side. You may find the testimony of one witness is entitled to greater weight than that of another witness or even of several other witnesses. In weighing the evidence, you may take into account matters of your common knowledge and your observations and experiences in the affairs of life. It is the duty of the jury to scrutinize and to weigh the testimony of witnesses and to determine the effect of the evidence as a whole. You are the sole judges of the credibility, that is, the believability of the witnesses and of the weight to be given to their testimony. In your determination of credibility, you must avoid bias, conscious or unconscious, based on the witness's race, national origin, religion, age, ability, gender identity, sexual orientation, education, income level, or any other personal characteristic. In determining the credibility of each and the weight you give to the testimony of each witness, consider these factors: whether the witness has an interest or lack of interest in the result of this trial, the witness's conduct, appearance, and demeanor on the witness stand, the clearness or lack of clearness of the witness's recollections, the opportunity the witness had for observing and for knowing the matters the witness testified about, the reasonableness of the witness's testimony, the apparent intelligence of the witness, bias or prejudice, if any has been shown, possible motives for falsifying testimony, and all other facts and circumstances during the trial which tend either to support or to discredit the testimony. Then give to the testimony of each witness the weight you believe it should receive. There is no magic way for you to evaluate the testimony. Instead, you should use your common sense and experience. In everyday life, you determine for yourselves the reliability of things people say to you. You should do the same thing here. A defendant in a criminal case has the absolute constitutional right not to testify. The defendant's decision not to testify must not be considered by you in any way and must not influence your verdict in any manner. Ordinarily, a witness may testify only about facts. However, a witness with specialized knowledge in a particular field may give an opinion in that field. In determining the weight to be given to this opinion, you should consider the qualifications and credibility of the witness, the facts upon which the opinion is based, and the reason given for the opinion. Opinion evidence was received to help you reach a conclusion. However, you are not bound by any witness's opinion. In resolving conflicts in opinion testimony, weigh the different opinions against each other. Also, consider the qualifications and credibility of the witnesses and the facts supporting their opinions. During the trial, a witness was told to assume certain facts and then was asked for an opinion based upon that assumption. This is called a hypothetical question. The opinion does not establish the truth of the facts upon which it is based. Consider the opinion only if you believe the assumed facts upon which it is based have been proved. If you find that the facts stated in a hypothetical question have not been proved, then the opinion based on those facts should not be given any weight. Consider carefully the closing arguments of the attorneys, but their arguments and conclusions and opinions are not evidence. Draw your own conclusions from the evidence and decide upon your verdict according to the evidence, under the instructions given you by the court. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, as I indicated, I've read most of the instructions. The attorneys will now give closing statements. The state, because they have the burden of proof, goes first, the defense second, and then the state will have an opportunity for a rebuttal closing if they wish. Ms. Gordon?
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. I know it's been a long 7 days, jury selection, and then hearing a lot of tough, difficult evidence. I don't take that for granted, that it's hard for individuals off the street on your normal everyday life to hear some of the evidence that you've heard and seen, some of the photos that you've seen. So I appreciate the time and attention you've given to this case. In the state of versus Matthew Pahl, the state has to prove two elements
Cool,
on the charge of
Michelle.
first-degree intentional homicide. We have to prove the defendant caused the death of Stephanie Pavlons, meaning that the defendant's act was a substantial factor in producing her death, and that the defendant acted with the intent to kill Stephanie Pavlons. You heard from the medical examiner. She makes a medical determination. You, as the jurors, make a legal determination. Just because she was not able to determine a medical cause of death does not mean that you, as 12 jurors, cannot reach a conclusion that the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant caused Stephanie Pavlons' death. Because you have the benefit of all the evidence that you heard over the last few days. You heard the text messages, you saw the Skype messages, you saw the phone evidence, you saw the interviews, and you know the history between Mr. Matthew Pahl and his longtime girlfriend, Stephanie Pavlons. You have more evidence here today than Dr. Scheel was able to review, but also you make an entirely different determination. I don't have to prove as the state that there was a motive or that this act was premeditated. I think in this case there was a motive. I think in this case Mr. Pahl was done with Stephanie Pavlons. But I don't have to prove that, and you don't have to believe that I've proven a motive beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a circumstantial case. You heard all the evidence, and particularly with Detective Schrader, all of the cell phone evidence. That is circumstantial evidence, but that is just as good as direct evidence. For count 2, I have to prove that the defendant hid a corpse, and to hide means to put or keep out of sight, and that the defendant hid a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime. The body must be concealed. It doesn't have to be buried. It doesn't have to be covered up. It just has to be concealed, out of sight. Ms. Pavlons' body was clearly concealed, clearly out of sight, because for 17 days, golfers at the Western Lakes Golf Club did not see her body. For 17 days, employees at OAW came and left every day. Some even ate their lunch on a picnic table looking out towards those woods, and they did not see her body. For 17 days, patients came and went from OAW and did not see her body. And you heard Deputy Frischello say, if that construction worker had not pointed the body out to me, I would not have been able to find it. Those construction workers just happened upon the body. They didn't intend to find the body. They didn't know that that's what they were going to find that day. Those poor construction workers were just trying to do their job, put in some no trespassing signs. But what they came upon was a nightmare. Ms. Pavlons' body was also not visible to the drivers on I-94 or to the drivers on Gulf Road. You had the opportunity to go out there and see the scene yourself. So use your common sense and judgment. That body was concealed. That body was hidden. And the defendant intended for her body to be concealed. He didn't want anyone to find her. He didn't want anyone to know what had happened. Sure, he didn't dig a grave and put her in a grave, but he didn't have to, because in 17 days, her body was so decomposed that Dr. Scheel couldn't determine a cause of death, that the insect activity and the state of decomposition was so great that he left us with very little evidence at the scene. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense asked a lot of questions about Ms. Pavlons' mental health history, her suicide attempts. But ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. This was not a suicide. This is Stephanie Pavlons on August 18th, her conversations with Mr. Zakos. Want to get together? You could come out to Delafield. We could get some dinner. Look at that picture of her. She looks happy. She looks upbeat. So how do we know this wasn't a suicide? She's making plans for her life. She's making plans with Mr. Zackos, or at least trying to. She's telling her doctor that she wants to work on some problems that she might have with her memory. She wants to do some testing. She's concerned about her health. Someone that's not planning to live doesn't make those plans for their life. And Dr. Russell told you, she was more upbeat when he saw her in May. She was thinking more positively, and she was concerned about her future health problems. She wanted to find ways to make her life better. She was taking care of herself. Mrs. Pavlons told you that Stephanie was looking forward to going to the Philippines. She was excited to get her passport. That was Stephanie's plan. That certainly wasn't Mr. Pahl's plan. He didn't want Stephanie to go with him, but Stephanie was excited about the future. You saw on her cell phone that she had upcoming appointments, both doctor's appointments. She had dentist appointments. You heard from the dental scheduler that said, yeah, I called her a couple of times because she was planning for the future. There are no suicide attempts since March of 2021. Was Stephanie depressed? Yeah, absolutely. You saw those journal entries. Her life was terrible. But who made her life terrible? Mr. Pahl. His violent and abusive actions made her life miserable. He controlled her medications. He controlled her movements. He controlled her finances. He controlled every aspect of her life. She doesn't even have the ability to take her medication when and how it's prescribed. No, Mr. Pahl, when she can have her medications. She has to ask him for her own medications. She has no prescriptions with her in the woods. She's found in the woods, no purse, no water bottle, no drug paraphernalia, no prescriptions, nothing. Just a vape and a scalpel outside of the wooded area. The position of her body and the location of her body tell us this was not a suicide. Ms. Pavlons didn't go out there with the intention of ending her life. And finally, that note. The note that's found in Mr. Pahl's car, Exhibit 35. Mr. Pahl, initially in his interview, says, that was just a cry for help. That's what him and his dad thought. But here in court, they characterized that as a suicide note. But ladies and gentlemen, that was no suicide note. That was a breakup note. That was an I'm done with you note. The content is not consistent with a suicide note. And where it's found, think about that. Under the floor car mat, under a piece of foam, on the floor of the passenger footwell. If Stephanie is committing suicide on August 23rd, she surely isn't leaving a message for Mr. Pahl under a piece of foam under the floor mat. We also know that this isn't a medical cause of death. You heard from Dr. Russell. How powerful was that testimony? He told you that there was a less than 1% bodily harm or even death. He said the only times he could think of a seizure causing a patient's death was if they had the unlucky occasion to be swimming while they had the seizure. Or maybe they were sleeping and they smothered themselves in their bedding.
There's lots of ways you
This
can
was not a
definitely
seizure.
seizure.
You can rule that out. This was not a suicide. So what is this? This was a homicide. Mr. Pahl is covering his tracks from August 23rd all the way until he's arrested on September 18th of 2023. He says to his girlfriend in the Philippines, "We will be ready." On August 19th, we know that there's a conversation between Mr. Pahl and one of his girlfriends in the Philippines, Ms. Sherilyn Valente,
Hey, Carla.
saying he's upset that Sherilyn and Stephanie have been talking. He tells her, I'm asking you just to leave her alone. He doesn't want them communicating. And why? Because they don't know that Stephanie's living with him. They don't know that Stephanie and Mr. Pahl have a child in common, Layla. They don't know that Stephanie is not his employee, that it's his girlfriend, his longtime partner. He's hoping for a future in the Philippines with a good, honest girlfriend. What he means by that? Someone that will obey him, do exactly what he tells them, and let him control every aspect of their life. He wants to move on. So on 8:39 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the last time Ms. Pavlons is ever seen entering, exiting that apartment. You saw her belongings. You watched that video over and over again. And I know we played it over and over again, but that video is so important because it tells us everything about Stephanie in her last moments of life. What is she wearing? What is she carrying? What does she have with her? On August 23rd, the defendant goes to his OAW appointment and he takes this picture, captured at 9:34. It's pretty curious. Why are you taking a picture in your appointment? But also look at those windows. Those windows were pointed out by the defense a couple of times with a couple of different witnesses. Those windows at the top, you can't see anything out of those. You can't see into the wooded area. And those windows all the way to the other side of the building, there's all kinds of workout equipment. People are being rehabbed, having physical therapy. You can't see out those windows the way the defense wants you to believe. Then between 10:33, when Mr. Pahl's appointment is over, and 10:53 a.m., you saw these records. And these are so important, ladies and gentlemen, because they tell us that Mr. Pahl on the left and Ms. Pavlons on the right, their cell phones are located at or near OAW for that entire time period. 20 minutes, that's plenty of time. That's plenty of time for Mr. Pahl to kill Ms. Pavlons. There's 20 minutes that's unaccounted for. What is Mr. Pahl doing during that time? He says he's driving up and down the road looking for Ms. Pavlons because she's just disappeared. That's not supported by the records. That's not supported by the records, and Ms. Pavlons' device was there too. Then from 10:54 to 11:03, you heard from Detective Schrader that both of those devices returned to the residence. At 11:03, you see Mr. Pahl's truck enter the Willow Park Apartments parking lot. Then, for about 11 minutes in his truck, we don't know. There's no cameras that look out that direction, but we know he's not inside yet. At 11:14 a.m., the defendant comes in carrying Ms. Pavlons' pink water bottle. Between 11:14 and 12:19, just over an hour, the defendant is inside of his apartment. You should have noticed that on that last video, Mr. Pahl didn't prop the door open. In fact, on any day, August 23rd or after, he doesn't prop the door open for Ms. Pavlons because he knows she's not coming back. He knows where she is. She's in the woods. She's dead. She's not coming back. So he doesn't need to leave the door open. At 12:19, he exits the apartments. He walks outside towards the parking lot. And from 12:19 to 12:29, he's again outside in that parking lot. We don't know what he's doing. But at 12:29, he comes in. And what is Mr. Pahl carrying? Mr. Pahl is carrying this purse, concealed in a bag. Concealed in a bag so that no one sees him coming in with this distinctive looking purse. Because Ms. Pavlons was last seen walking out. And he's not stupid. He knows there's cameras. You saw him in some of those videos that Attorney Galvez showed you. He's kind of ducking his head, trying to stay out of the camera view when he's letting Stephanie in. He knows he's on camera. He has to conceal that. That is a vital piece of evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see from this purse that Mr. Pahl carries in that day. And he even tells law enforcement that he brought the purse back. He just lies about how that happened. Then on August 23rd, that afternoon, he makes 2 calls from Stephanie's phone. 2 calls to her food share card, checking her account. Why make those calls from her phone? According to him, and what he tells law enforcement, he hasn't even found the phone yet. But we know that that's him using the phone. Mr. Pahl doesn't have visitors. Mr. Pahl and Ms. Pavlons don't have friends. It's just the 2 of them. And if Ms. Pavlons isn't there to make those calls, it's Mr. Pahl. Sorry. On August 24th, he then makes a call prescription for alprazolam. He's also prescribed alprazolam, but he wants her alprazolam. Then on August 25th, he says, I'm really worried about somebody in my circle. 2 days have gone by. You saw no evidence that he called 911, said, oh my gosh, my girlfriend's missing. This is concerning. He doesn't call family members. No, he calls the pharmacy and he calls her food share. What is he really worried about? He's really worried that he's going to get caught because he killed Stephanie. He calls the Pick and Save pharmacy again on the 25th, and then he deletes that call. You should be asking yourselves, if he wasn't doing anything wrong, if Mr. Pahl had nothing to hide, why does he delete the call to Pick and Save pharmacy? If he was really just picking up her prescription because he was just being a good guy, then why delete the call? That day at 3:17, he picks up her prescription, which, important to note, that bottle's found at his apartment on September 17th. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's empty. Stephanie Pavlons has not once been at that apartment to use her prescription. And yet, he says that night to his friends in the Philippines, hoping something bad didn't happen, I'm getting even more worried. Yeah, I bet he's worried. It's been 2 days since Stephanie was last seen alive on camera. He could be in just call from her daughter Layla on the 25th. He doesn't answer that Facebook call. He doesn't call Layla back. And again, he does. On that day, the defense showed you video of him sitting in the lobby, reading the newspaper, just going about his everyday life. Not the kind of guy that looks really worried about someone in his circle. He's really worried about himself. On August 26th, there's an email with Sherlyn Valente. He says, I think something bad happened here. Don't ask me through text. Something bad happened here. Like you murdered your girlfriend? That would be something bad. With a bad feeling. Yeah, a bad feeling that what he's doing is going to get him caught. His web history, he's searching for obituaries, searching Stephanie's name. Not a single soul in the world, except for Mr. Pahl, knows that Stephanie Pavlons is dead on August 26th. Not law enforcement, not Mr. and Mrs. Pavlons, not Layla Pavlons, Mr. Pahl. This is now 3 days after Stephanie is killed, and these messages about being worried, they just keep coming. Then on August 26th, Stephanie has 3 missed calls from Layla on Facebook. Then Layla calls her phone. She's so worried about her mom. Why aren't you answering the phone? She calls and calls and calls. And we know that 17 minutes later, Mr. Pahl listens to that voicemail. We know that. You can see from this evidence. Is this circumstantial? Absolutely. But it shows that it is Mr. Pahl that listens to that.
Yeah, he was taking them too.
Because what happens next? He says, my niece called, left message. She's in hospital and broke her leg. My God, what next? See, he didn't tell his girlfriends in the Philippines that he had a daughter with Stephanie, because maybe they wouldn't want to be with him. He's creating this fantasy life in the Philippines to escape his real life, his daughter, his longtime girlfriend, and he says Layla is his niece. But then there's all those bring to focus of the police scanner app. See, Mr. Pahl knows that Stephanie's isolated. He knows that she doesn't have any friends. He knows that she doesn't have anyone in her life that's going to be looking for her. Except for maybe Layla, except for maybe Mrs. Pavlons. And Mrs. Pavlons told you they'd go weeks without hearing from her. She's an adult. She's living with her boyfriend. It's not that uncommon. But she eventually comes back. She eventually comes and stays at their house. Mr. Pahl had a choice on August 25th and August 26th. If he was really worried about Stephanie, if she really just walked off the way he said she did, he could have picked up the phone to Layla. He could have said, hey, I have mom's phone here. I'm really worried. But that's not what he did. That's not what he did because he killed Stephanie. We also know that on August 26th, for the first time in over a month, or over 2 months, Mr. Matthew Pahl calls his dad Marvin Pahl. This is very suspicious. They haven't talked in a long time. They don't talk regularly, clearly. And then on August 27th, August 28th, they talk. 9/8, 9/9, 9/10, 9/11, 9/12, 9/13, 9/14, 9/15, and 9/17. He's calling his dad almost every day, repeatedly. And he's talking about his conversations with his girlfriends. So on August 27th, he calls his dad. And while he's on the phone with his dad, we know his dad is searching Stephanie Pavlons. Why is Marvin searching for Stephanie Pavlons? That's mighty suspicious. On August 28th, he says, I can't explain in text. See, if Stephanie's missing, or she killed herself, why can't he explain that in text? Ladies and gentlemen, the reasonable explanation here, he can't explain in text because he doesn't want to leave a trail. He thinks he's covering his trail. He thinks he's being smart about this. He's not texting about certain things. But he didn't know that we would know Stephanie's phone went to OAW and came back. He didn't know that we'd be able to look through her entire phone, find some things that he deleted. He didn't know that we were smarter than him because he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. Ask yourself why. Then on August 29th, he again searches obituaries, and this time Pavlons. Detective Schrader said he was conservative in how he listed these web histories. That each time he listed a web history, that was because it was a new and unique search, telling you that Mr. Pahl was making a new search for Ms. Pavlons on August 29th. Again, no one in the world on August 29th, except for Mr. Pahl, knows that Stephanie Pavlons is deceased. Then this really weird exchange happens on September 4th. He poses as Stephanie. Mr. Pahl uses Stephanie's account to reach out to his girlfriend in the Philippines because they haven't been talking because he's been mad at her. He wants her back, but he's not going to be the one to reach out. So he reaches out through Stephanie's account. He sends her these messages, hey, what's happened with you and Matt? And then suddenly, Matt and Sherlyn start to talk again. On September 7th, he has this conversation. You had more than a year to be friends with Steph. Suddenly you act like a friend. She says, I'm sorry about Steph. She wasn't being a good friend, and to just leave it alone. He's
Judy.
mad. He's pretending to be mad.
I'm sorry. I just got a notification for Peter's live right now. He's calling the title of this stream, Proctor's box has been opened. Talking about Proctor. Proctor's box has been opened. Was Brady material kept from Karen Reed and others? Instead of Pandora's box, you guys know the Greek myth. I think it's Greek. Pandora's box. Proctor's box.
Because he doesn't want them to talk. But he knows. Mr. Pahl knows. Sherlyn wasn't talking to Stephanie. She was talking to Matt. And the day before, on September 6th, we know that he drives around the backside of OAW. You saw those really slowed dash cams as he comes around the back, just looking at that little wooded area where he left Miss Pavlons' body. He's looking to see if anyone found her, and on that day he goes to the car wash. He says that's the day he found the note. That's the day he found the purse. But the evidence suggests otherwise. Then on September 9th, he's supposed to go to OAW. He has another appointment, but when he gets there, he is not expecting to see the law enforcement presence that is there. He is so caught off guard. He is so surprised. You saw him on that dash cam. He's in the right lane of travel, and he's like, whoop, nope, not going in there. Definitely not going in there right now. Got to figure this out. Ooh, what should I do? Yeah, I should probably drive all the way down into a subdivision, turn around, get my wits about me. He's probably thinking, if I don't go to the appointment, that'll look really suspicious. I'll go there. I'll try and find out what they're doing. I'll try and get an eye on what's going on. He doesn't just make a quick U-turn either. He drives all the way down into that subdivision, all the way to the end, and then turns around. He's panicked. He knows why they're there. He's the only person in the world that knows whose body is laying in those woods. He knows why they're there, he knows what they're doing, and he knows the jig is up. If he's not careful, if he doesn't cover his tracks, if he doesn't act carefully over the next few days, he's going to be in big trouble. So while he's at his appointment, he checks the police scanner. He calls his dad. And when he drives into OAW on September 9th, these are zoomed in stills of that dash camera. Look back into the woods, ladies and gentlemen. You can't see any of those detectives that are working in the area where the body was found. You can't see anything. That body was concealed. Mr. Pahl, on September 9th, when he drives in, he can't see what they're doing back there, but he knows. This just proves how concealed that area is. It's concealed in plain sight. It's concealed in a busy area, but everybody's busy. Everybody's focusing on their day, their appointment, their job, their drive. How many times have you thought, man, I just got to work and I don't remember getting here? Because you're focused on your own day. The people at OAW couldn't see what Matt hid. After his appointment, you heard him on the scanner as he walks out. He's outside of OAW for a little bit before he gets in his car, and then he goes right to his dad's house, where he and his dad talk things over. He doesn't approach the cops. He doesn't say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys are here. I've been so worried about my girlfriend. She walked away from my car here 17 days ago. I had no idea. I have no idea where she is. No. He drove away. He didn't talk to police. He talked to his dad. While he's at his dad's house, look at these web searches. Stephanie Pavlons, missing woman found dead. Does anyone know that Stephanie Pavlons has been found dead on September 9th? Well, Mr. Pahl, the police definitely don't know that day. Waukesha police scanner, news happening today in Waukesha. Again, missing woman found dead. Body found by construction worker, dead. These searches, they tell you that Mr. Pahl knew what happened to Stephanie. They tell you that he was the one responsible for what happened to Stephanie. Then on September 9th, you heard testimony that the only other time he used the elevator was when his dad came over to spend the night. They took the elevator up to his apartment on the 3rd floor, and his dad spends the night. Then on September 10th, in the morning, Mr. Pahl reads this article. Dead body found by construction crew in Delafield. And you heard over and over again the testimony that no one knew that this was a woman. On September 10th, we don't even know who the body is. We don't know who the identity of that person is. And then at 8:26 p.m., Mr. Marvin Pahl is searching Stephanie Pavlons. On September 11th, he says he's wondering why all this bad shit now is grieving time. What are you grieving? You're grieving Stephanie because you killed her. Who's dead? No one knows that Stephanie's dead. Nobody but Mr. Pahl. He certainly doesn't seem like he's been grieving. He's been chatting daily with both of his girlfriends in the Philippines. He's going about his life. No huge change in pattern for Mr. Pahl. He's just going about his life, taking walks, taking her phone with him when he goes to appointments, random places out in the city of Waukesha. Who knows why he's doing that? But we know Stephanie Pavlons isn't making that phone move. The only reasonable explanation is that Mr. Pahl was taking the phone. Then Mrs. Pavlons calls Stephanie, her mom. Her mom calls her. And Mr. Pahl, her partner of 20 years, doesn't answer the phone and say, hey, Georgianne, I know things are really strained between us, but I'm worried. I haven't heard from her. I haven't seen her. I don't know what's going on with her. Have you seen her? Have you heard from her? No, he doesn't do that. Defense is going to say, well, he's just a bad boyfriend. He's a really bad boyfriend, and you don't have to like him, but, you know, it is what it is. That doesn't mean he killed her. If he didn't kill her, why doesn't he answer the phone? If he didn't kill her, why does he check the voicemail and then go on with his day. He then calls his dad at 6, and that night he says, "I had a long talk with Dad. We will be ready." Ready for what? Ready for the police? Ready for the investigation that's going to follow? Ready for the search warrants that will happen? Ready for what? The family called someone and said nobody has seen her. The family. Mrs. Pavlons. Because Mrs. Pavlons called her that day. And Matt knows, Mr. Pahl knows, that the only people in her life that are actually going to raise some alarms or might be concerned about her are her mother and her father and her daughter. Then on September 12th, again, web searches for obituaries and funeral services. Now keep in mind, this is the day that Mr. and Mrs. Pavlons learn that their daughter is deceased. They're notified on that day by Detective Fredericks and Detective Plennis. They make the death notification. And on that same day, Mr. Pahl, who has not been notified by law enforcement, is searching for her obituary. Mrs. Pavlon calls again that day. Mr. Pahl still doesn't answer. He deletes the call to the voicemail, and Marvin is checking CCAP and dead body found by construction worker. Dead body found in Delafield. September 14th, if you don't hear from me because something happens, I'll get with you ASAP. In case something bad happens, he says a lot of chatter about this and that, but nothing concrete, not texting anymore. This is a constant theme. He won't put it in text because he knows if he'd put it in text, I'd be reading it here, right here for you in court. He knows that. He's not that stupid. He knows he has to be careful. He can't text it followed by calls. What are they talking about on the calls? We're never going to know that. Then on September 15th, he says, driving back from Dad's, got my banking business done for overseas traveling. Says to the other girlfriend, Sherlyn, did banking business for overseas travel. Then he sends a message from Stephanie's phone to his phone. And this is the only remaining message between Stephanie and Mr. Pahl on her device. Some YouTube link, some article about ATF. I don't know what the significance of that is, but I do know the fact that that's the only remaining message means that Mr. Pahl had been very busy deleting things. And we know he was very busy deleting things because Detective Schrader explained this to you. 380 messages are deleted between March 17th and June 17th. 442 messages deleted between June 17th and August 15th. And 93 messages deleted between August 15th and September 14th. All kinds of things we know were deleted after September 8th because Detective Schrader testified about that snapshot that came up on her phone, that no one would be able to see, right? That he could look through her phone and find. And it had text messages and calls, all of which are deleted. That snapshot's taken on September 8th. So sometime between September 8th and September 17th, Mr. Pahl was deleting things. I don't know when he deleted all these messages. I don't know if he deleted these messages. But I do know that there are no messages between Stephanie and Mr. Pahl. That's pretty curious, given that they're so close. They spend so much time together. Why are all those messages gone? And 66 times he brings to focus the police scanner app on 9/9. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've talked about all the cell phone evidence now that points to Mr. Pahl being guilty of this. of the state proving beyond a reasonable doubt circumstantial evidence that Mr. Pahl was the person that caused the death of Stephanie Pavlons. I want to talk to you about that interview. I know that was a lot of days ago, and a lot has happened since then. But let's talk through some of those inconsistencies that he had in his interview. When he's asked about the phone, he gives a few different versions. First, he says, well, I found it when I found the purse, which is on September 6th when he's at the car wash. But then he says, no, she didn't have her phone that day. She left it at the apartment. Because I said, oh, I'll text you when I'm done with my appointment. And she said, oh, I left it at the apartment. See, but he didn't know that we could track her phone. He didn't know that we had tracked her phone to OAW and back. So he got caught in a lie. And what does he do? Call her mom. Well, I couldn't call her because, she didn't have her phone because I had her phone. Right. He's trying to cover his tracks. He doesn't know what we know. So during the interview, he's constantly asking law enforcement, well, what do you know? Well, what did you see out there? Well, what was going on in the woods? What were you guys doing yesterday? He's trying to gather information from them so he can weave his story together. And he weaves some truth in with the lies because he thinks that'll make it more believable. When he's asked about the purse, he says, well, I found it at the car wash. Before he knows he's caught in the lie, he says, yeah, it was the black purse. Yeah, that black purse, sure. Yeah, I brought that in. He's asked, well, how did you bring it in? He's like, well, it would look strange if I just, carried it on my shoulder. But he never answers the question directly. And then, when confronted, he says, oh, that's not the purse. That doesn't prove anything. That doesn't prove anything. Well, Mr. Pahl, it proves a lot of things. It proves that you knew Stephanie wasn't coming back. It proves you had the purse on August 23rd. Why did you have her purse on August 23rd? Then he says, oh, no. It was a different purse that I found on September 6th. It was a gray purse. Okay. The damage was already done. We'd already caught him in a lie. When he's asked about the note, he claims to have also found that at the car wash. And at one point he even says, oh, well, if I had found the note and the purse together, then I would have been really worried. I probably would have done something. About that. Well, he didn't. He didn't do anything about that. He didn't find the purse and the note together at the car wash. You saw that video. He wasn't like, oh my God, a note from Stephanie. I didn't know she left this. No. He takes the mats out, he hangs them up, comes back. He doesn't vacuum the car. He doesn't spray down the mats. He just takes them out and puts them back in. See, because here's where Mr. Pahl's deliberate. He knew there was video. He knew we were watching. He's trying to cover his tracks every day. Bit by bit, he's trying to create a narrative. He doesn't say it's a suicide note that day when he's interviewed. He doesn't say, yeah, I thought Stephanie tried to kill herself based on this note. That's not what he says. He also doesn't tell law enforcement that it's going to be found under a piece of foam under his car mat. That was weird. He cannot remember the last time that he saw Stephanie. It's more than 20 minutes, maybe even more than 40 minutes into the interview before he finally nails down, well, I think we went mattress shopping the day before. Okay, well, what happened the next day? Mr. Pahl? Yeah, I think I went to OAW. Yeah, I think she went with me, but I don't know. Did you stop anywhere? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah, no, actually, when I came out of my appointment, she was just gone. Ladies and gentlemen, that makes absolutely no sense. He doesn't have a story that fits the evidence. He tried to cover his tracks. He tried to do things that he thought would be distracting to us, but we found the evidence. The cell phones changed the game. Throughout that interview, he's trying to control the narrative, say that this was suicide, bring up every time they try to ask, well, when was the last time you saw her? Oh, well, you know, she's really suicidal. Yeah, she's a basket case. She's got problems. Let me tell you about all her problems. He doesn't sound like someone that's worried about the well-being of his girlfriend. He doesn't sound like someone that's concerned that she might be deceased, because he knows what happened, and he's trying to spin a web of lies. We know that after this, he travels to the Philippines. He goes to be with his girlfriend in the Philippines, and he comes back. Why did he go to the Philippines? Well, maybe he went there to be with his girlfriends. Maybe he was hoping to move there, get away from this case. He hadn't been charged yet, avoid any charges, which is why that extradition note, that's what we've called it, the note that's found in his apartment saying, extradition yes, extradition no. That's why that's so significant. He's looking for countries where he can't be brought back here to face the justice that Stephanie Pavlons deserves. He's not the smartest criminal. He's not the stupidest criminal. I don't have to prove to you that he's extra smart or that he made dumb decisions. Some of the things that he did don't make sense. You might be thinking, well, if he did this, why wouldn't he just dump his phone in the river? Well, I don't know. But he did it. And we have that evidence. And the phone evidence is powerful. The phone evidence is circumstantial, but bit by bit, as Detective Schrader went through that timeline, the state built its case. And Ms. Opper in her opening asked you to be patient. And I know you all were patient with the state as we built our case. Because this isn't a case where we had an eyewitness. This isn't a case where we had the homicide on video. We had to do hard work to prove this case. Each piece of evidence builds on one another. No single piece of evidence is determinative in this case. But each piece shows you the kind of person that Mr. Matthew Pahl was, shows you the relationship that Stephanie Pavlons had with Mr. Pahl, and ultimately that Stephanie Pavlons met her demands of the defendant. This is a circumstantial case, ladies and gentlemen. I ask that you carefully consider each of the pieces of evidence that were presented to you, that you look at all of the evidence in a whole, not close up, one by one, because it's each piece put together that shows beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Pahl is not only guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, but that he also intentionally concealed Stephanie's body. And because he did concealed, she was eaten by insects, her body decomposed so greatly to the point that there was no DNA evidence, there's no cause of death, but that doesn't change the other evidence we have. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking that you find the defendant guilty of both counts 1 and 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if I could just make sure that our side works.
Good afternoon. You, the jury, are now charged with trying to assemble the recipe for the charged offenses on August 23rd of 2022. You have certain major ingredients. We know that Matthew Pahl and Stephanie Pavlons had been in some type of relationship for well over 23 years. Again, they had an adult daughter, Layla, together. We know Stephanie and Matthew never married. They had an on-again, off-again relationship. Stephanie spent periods of time with Matthew, and she spent extended periods of time at her parents' home in Delafield. Her driver's license was for the Delafield home, and she listed the Delafield home to medical providers. We know in 20 and 21, Matthew communicated regularly with at least 2 girls in the Philippines. Stephanie was not only aware of this, but she also communicated with at least one and likely both of them. We know Matthew and Stephanie had medical issues, and both were taking prescription medication. We know Stephanie had a history of mental health issues, including suicide attempts. We know in the summer of 2022, Matthew broke his foot and needed to go through several months of physical therapy. And then we know Stephanie stayed at Matthew's apartment the night of August 22nd, 2023. The next morning, they left the apartment building and drove to Orthopedic Associates in the town of Delafield, and they stopped at Quick Trip on the way. Matthew attended his therapy appointment, then drove directly back to his apartment, and Stephanie was no longer with him. We know on the morning of September 9th of 2022, some workers were placing those no trespassing signs around that wooded area, and they located Stephanie Pavlons' body. Finally, we know the Waukesha County Medical Examiner cannot determine the cause or manner of death for Stephanie Pavlons. You as a jury have heard 7 days of testimony. You've heard from 28 witnesses and seen hundreds of exhibits. That testimony and that evidence does not provide the full picture, and they are not the necessary ingredients, and they are not sufficient for the crimes charged. I also would like to thank you as the jury. You've made sacrifices from work, you've made sacrifices from your family. This is not only your civic duty, but we all have a desire to see that justice and fairness are preserved. You've given Mr. Pahl the opportunity to have his day in court, and I believe we have demonstrated he is not guilty of these crimes. If you remember back to jury selection, the questions were meticulous, they were repetitive, and they were selective. And I want you to think about why. Why is because we wanted 12 people who could reason. We wanted 12 people who could listen carefully to the evidence. And we wanted 12 people who could apply common sense. Remember, Mr. Pahl innocent. And again, he was innocent in the eyes of the law, and I hope and trust that you presented him innocent at the onset of this case. Finally, you promised to hold the government to the burden of proving Mr. Pahl guilty of these crimes beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And I call upon you to abide by that promise. You've all heard the phrase reasonable doubt. It's been mentioned in this and other trials. The judge will provide you a definition of it, and the state has the burden of proving each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt. Prosecutors, lawyers, and even police officers work within standards that are called burdens of proof. Burdens of proofs are levels of certainty as to whether a fact is true. Perhaps the lowest burden is a mere hunch or a suspicion. The next level would be reasonable suspicion. And reasonable suspicion is defined as having specific facts that a specific individual did something wrong. Reasonable suspicion is needed for a police officer to make an involuntary contact, like a traffic stop. Next would be probable cause. Probable cause is a reasonable amount of suspicion, supported by circumstances sufficiently strong to justify a person's belief that certain facts are probably true. Probable cause is needed to arrest an individual for a criminal act. Then there's preponderance of evidence, which would be the next burden, and this is a balance of probabilities. And it is met if there is more than a 50% fact is true. This is a general standard in civil cases. The next burden is clear and convincing evidence, and this means that a fact is highly and substantially more probable to be true. Finally, we have your burden of proof. Proof that something is true beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, this is proof of something so convincing that you would be willing to rely upon it without hesitation in the most important aspects of your life. This is something you have been told, and there is no plausible reason to believe otherwise. A criminal conviction is something so important that our legal system requires the government to prove someone committed each and every element of each charged offense beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, Mr. Pahl is charged with 2 offenses. The judge read the jury instructions, which give you the specific elements. I ask you to please review those elements very carefully. Reasonable doubt does not require you have the exact measurements of every required ingredient. However, it does require at the end you have a proper cake. I'm comfortable that the government has not met its burden. You need to sort through all the items in your pantry. See what is needed for the recipe. You need to focus on what relates to those events of August 23rd and how or if those The state has pointed out that Matthew must be guilty because he appeared to know something between August 23rd and September 17th. Stephanie drove with him to that scheduled appointment at Orthopedic Associates on August 23rd. Stephanie spent much of her time otherwise at the family home in Delafield, so she had a safe place to stay. Stephanie received SSDI for income. She had support from her parents. They drove her, and she had electronics at the house. Though she left her phone in the truck, she could text, Skype, and email on iPads. Most of her calls and texts were actually with Matt. Stephanie had emotional issues, and she also kept to herself. When he came out of his scheduled appointment, Stephanie was no longer there. He drives around a bit, but the cell phone mapping shows he didn't go much more than 300 meters or about 1,000 feet from the area of the appointment. But he would give Stephanie her space. He went home, he brought her stuff up to the apartment, so it was there when she returned. Matthew goes about his life. He checks the mail, he reads the paper, he goes for a bike ride, and he follows his routine. A few days go by, and he starts to express concern. You saw that in his communications. As you heard, Matthew is private, and he is paranoid of the government. He is worried that if something happened to Stephanie, he will be blamed. Then comes September 9th. Matthew sees a large police presence right next to Orthopedic Associates, and that's where he last saw Stephanie. His concern and his paranoia are really going. By the clothing and longer hair, all present deputies, officers, and detectives are aware the body is that of a female. By the shoes, we know that at least one of the construction workers knew it was a woman. The police talk with, they conduct interviews with people on the scene, including OAW employees and onlookers during the 4 to 5 hours they are on scene. Matthew monitors police scanners. He Googles the newspaper for stories, and he skims obituaries. Personally, I don't find this behavior suspicious. If someone I knew was missing, I'd do the same thing. He is now very concerned about Stephanie's whereabouts and her condition. Matthew has had contact with police before. His worry, his paranoia, concern for himself continues to grow. You are shown his interview from September 17th. Yes, he is evasive. Yes, he is paranoid. And yes, he does not recall some specifics. Keep in mind, this is 25 days after he last saw Stephanie. The Waukesha City Police Tactical Unit had burst into his apartment. His home is searched. He's arrested. He's taken back to the sheriff's department, placed in a holding room for 3.5 hours, then read his Miranda rights. Yet what does he do? Despite all that, he actually speaks to officers for 2 hours. Then he's released. Despite his paranoia, the government has taken issue that Matthew didn't report her missing. We know Stephanie and Matthew had this on-again, off-again relationship, and Stephanie spent the time at her family home in Delafield. She received her mail at the Delafield house, and again, she used that address for medical records. We know Stephanie had a spare phone, an older phone at the house. She had other electronics still at her parents' home. Georgianne Pavlons also said that after the move from West Avenue to Delafield Street, Stephanie kept most of her stuff at that house. Finally, we were told Stephanie was very private. It was not unusual for Stephanie to have periods of no contact. No one, no friends, not Layla, not Georgianne Pavlons, despite an unanswered text August 25th, and not Richard Pavlons. No one reported her missing. The government made issue of the fact that Matthew accessed and occasionally used some electronics and even social media for Stephanie. Matthew and Stephanie spent time together. They worked together. Matthew recently bought one of Stephanie's cell phones for her, and he paid the phone costs and the data costs for both of them. The state even showed us a Skype exchange between one of the girls from the Philippines and Stephanie's account shortly after August 23rd. Ms. DeCierto sent 20-plus messages to Stephanie's account. Matthew responded once, maybe twice, pretending to be Stephanie. He was fishing, trying to see what Ms. DeCierto thought of Matthew. Then we saw Matthew quickly revealed it was him by mentioning spanking. He ended his trickery quickly. The government took issue with the fact that some calls were deleted from Stephanie's phone and maybe some texts. They make a big deal that Matthew was using Stephanie's phone, sending Facebook messages and Skype messages. But you saw Matthew's interview. He didn't tell the police, hey, her phone's been used. She's sending messages. She must be alive and well. There was no trickery like that. I honestly don't know why he did what he did, but it certainly doesn't prove that Matthew killed Stephanie Pavlons. What about the alprazolam prescription that Matthew's bottle was found empty 3 weeks later? It was mentioned by the state on September 17th. We also know that at that time, both Matthew and Stephanie were prescribed that medication. We know Matthew monitored Stephanie's prescriptions. We heard testimony that medication was often carried in their pockets. We know police thoroughly checked Matthew's apartment and his truck. We never heard if any alprazolam in the prescription bottle or otherwise was found anywhere else during those searches.
That's Xanax.
Then there's the black purse. Again, Stephanie and Matthew were frequently in and out of the building, up and down the stairs, carrying shopping bags, water bottles, and stuff to and from the truck. At some point, Matthew brought the purse back into the apartment and placed it with Stephanie's other tan bag in the bedroom closet for her when she returned. Like the pill bottle, Stephanie's phone, like her iPad, like her pink water bottle, he didn't throw the purse in the garbage, he didn't hide it, he didn't destroy it. There's no evidence Matthew wiped out his email accounts or his Skype accounts, and he didn't delete the memory from his dashboard camera. Again, it does not appear Matthew threw anything out despite his interactions with the police. During the search warrant a year later in September 2023, detectives located in a box that list and designations of countries which wouldn't cooperate with extradition. But we have no idea when or why that list was made. It clearly was no secret that Matthew Pahl communicated very regularly with those two women in the Philippines, Ms. Valente and Ms. DeCierto. We learned Stephanie communicated with both of them. Both Stephanie and Matthew were making plans to travel to the Philippines. Given the regular and open communication, this does not appear to have anything directly to do with the end of Stephanie's life. 7 months after he had been arrested, then released, we learned Matthew planned a trip to the Philippines in March of 2023. Despite his DNA being taken right before he left, thus knowing he was still a person of interest, Matthew Pahl returned to Waukesha as scheduled in June of 2023. The state has replied on the testimony of Deputy Willis of the Racine County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Willis is a handler for Raven, and they had gone through cadaver search training. We heard a lot about Willis and Raven's training. Most of the training involved actual human remains. Deputy Willis testified the NNDDA is voluntary. It's a voluntary membership, and he pays an annual fee. No specific education is required, and he's not even required to take training notes. He is tested or certified once a year or so, and was tested and certified by Ms. Corcoran, who is his regular trainer. Furthermore, we learned that most of Raven's real life that most real life actual searches involve searches for entire human cadavers, and in one case, a tooth. If an area law enforcement agent needed a dog to search an area to see if there were human remains, I would be the first to tell them to call Deputy Willis and Raven. However, there's a very big difference between operational efficiency and forensic reliability for a criminal trial. We heard from several lab technicians and other experts. We heard about the importance of blind testing, even double-blind testing. From certain experts, we heard words like statistical confirmation and certainty. We also heard in one certification test for the NNDDA that Deputy Willis and Raven had an 80% for proficiency. And that was a test that included human remains. And that was acceptable for his certification under the NNDDA policies. Again, I'm not saying Raven isn't a valuable tool, but detection by Raven does not come close to the reliability and validity required under most all forensic standards. Let's talk about the search that occurred and the circumstances under which that search occurred on September 19, 2022. We heard from Detective LaFleur. She was working in the ID Bureau and took initial custody of Mr. Pahl's Tacoma pickup truck. She directed the truck be placed in the pole barn for 2 days prior, and that was on September 17th. She said the pole barn or garage was pretty full. Though she was in charge of the inventory for that pole barn, she could not say where or what specific vehicles were in the garage on the date of the search. She was aware that there were at least 2 vehicles that were involved in fatal accidents. We learned there were many more, and she appeared to be unaware of those. We learned about the position of Mr. Pahl's truck during the search. It was parked alone at one end of the garage. Moreover, it was immediately at the starting point and thus the end point of the search. We also learned from Deputy Willis that human cadaver odor can transfer to containers and other items, even if they do not come in contact. So Mr. Pahl's truck spends 2 days in that pole barn, in the vicinity of numerous vehicles that had substantial, confirmed, dead human cadaver contact. At Deputy Willis's direction, Detective LaFleur even burped each door of Mr. Pahl's pickup truck, moving the air from within, but also around the pickup truck. She was not directed to burp any other vehicle, and even Deputy Willis stated this was a less than an ideal environment for a cadaver dog search. Then the search begins. Raven starts the search adjacent to Mr. Pahl's pickup truck with no change in behavior. We know Raven did not indicate on most of the vehicles that were actually involved in human fatality accidents, including numerous vehicles, motorcycles, and motorcycles. And Raven did not even exhibit a change of behavior.
He's got it written down and he's still screwing it up.
Nor did she provide an alert. Then we learned that when Raven was nearly back to the starting point, done with the search area, she turned around. Then Deputy Willis started walking away. Raven looked up at him, then walked back to the rear of the pickup, and Raven sat down and appeared to provide a formal alert. The dog walked past the pickup truck, then changed. This test was certainly not double-blind.
I don't understand why that matters.
The detectives were all aware of the target. The test wasn't single-blind. Deputy Willis was advised of the target. Again, why is this important? It's important because of increased likelihood of human cueing, either intentionally or more likely unintentional. Cueing by Deputy Willis and cueing by the deputies present. We were also told by several experts and detectives that preservation during evidence or evidence gathering is critical. And it's critical for documentation. It's critical in criminal cases when there is a need for review, for critical analysis. Deputy Willis even takes photos for his training notes. On September 19th, Deputy Willis and certainly the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department had the capacity to record that canine search. Video would have been best, photo would have been good, especially to have an inventory of that, a specific inventory and placement of cars in the garage. But we have neither. We have no way to review or evaluate what truly and accurately happened. Finally, we learn that the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, or detectives, brought in the forensic experts from the Wisconsin State Crime Lab to process the truck. Not only was there no visible evidence of any relevant volatile human remains. They took countless swabs, including from the rear bed and bumper. The results showed signs that Matthew Pahl was in the front cab of the truck, and I think the bed of the truck, but all other tests were negative. Finally, we have the biggest areas of reasonable doubt. We still have those three questions that I asked at the beginning of this case. Question 1, how did Stephanie get from the cab of Matt's truck several hundred feet in broad daylight to the small wooded area where she was found? Keep in mind that in August and September of 2022, the area appeared to be quite active. We saw the pictures. The body was along a path in a moderately sized clearing near a fire pit or a burn barrel.
In a little over
Not far
2
from numerous
weeks,
beer
it got
cans.
so overgrown
Even
you
after
couldn't see
workers
her, and no one
posted those
noticed her there when
trespassing
she
signs,
first.
at
Yeah,
least
right.
one person walked that trail through the woods. We saw that on the trail cam picture. Keep in mind, the area is bounded by a heavily
That's what I
traveled
said,
frontage road
Wiggles.
and interstate, a very busy health center, a golf course, and homes. Question 2.
He's just
If
not a
Matt carried
good
Stephanie
public
into that
speaker.
wooded area, when would he have done that? Keep in mind, Matt was still dealing with his broken foot. Keep in mind the distance from that parking lot to the woods, the traffic, the sight lines along the east side of Orthopedic Associates. Keep in mind that the government has hundreds of hours of camera footage and cell phone mapping, cameras that capture every
Not so
single
when it's
time
AJ, it's
Matthew
just
leaves
he's good
or
looking,
enters that
and it's
apartment
not
building.
he's good looking for a defense attorney.
That door 4 camera that captures every single time Matthew's truck leaves and enters the apartment. Those comings and goings
He's defended
correlate
some
to cell phone
scumbags
mapping.
too.
Other than a few
Kevin
scheduled
Spacey.
daytime appointments, there is no evidence that Matthew ever went back to the area of Orthopedic Associates. Think about this. If Matthew Pahl somehow killed Stephanie, why didn't he flee? He didn't flee after August 23rd, 2022. He kept his appointments at Orthopedic Associates. He kept his routine. He didn't flee after being arrested September 17th.
How come no one's talking to me today?
He also could have stayed in the Philippines, but he returned as scheduled to Waukesha in June of 2023. Finally, we have question 3, and that is, what proof does the government have that Stephanie was actually killed by another person? Could it have been suicide? Could it have been a medical issue? Now, we had Deputy Schrader's outline that took a good part of 2 days. After scouring days, perhaps weeks, of surveillance footage, thousands of emails, hundreds of Skype messages, and other cell phone data, he provided his PowerPoint presentation. That PowerPoint presentation not only very selectively picked which messages and data to show, he actually showed just select portions of many of those messages. Still, none of those 3 questions were answered. The government certainly wants Stephanie's death to be a homicide. They presented selective evidence to support their theory. However, there are countless theories, and those theories are not inconsistent with the testimony and the evidence. Again, members of the government said Stephanie was murdered in the woods. Then maybe Stephanie was murdered in the pickup truck, then somehow dragged to the woods. Keep in mind, family members said Stephanie liked to go for walks outside, especially if she wanted to smoke. Maybe Stephanie walked into the woods to vape and something happened. Keep in mind, Stephanie accidentally urinated in Matthew's truck during an appointment 2 weeks earlier. And we know Stephanie did not use the restroom at Quick Trip. Maybe Stephanie walked into the woods to use the restroom and something happened. Maybe Stephanie accidentally overdosed on her prescribed medication. Stephanie's own mother, Georgianne Pavlons, testified Stephanie talked about suicide. We learned Stephanie recently overdosed on her prescription medication. We also heard Stephanie had visible cuts on her wrists. We have Stephanie's journals, and we have the note that was found in Matthew's truck. Perhaps it was an intentional overdose. While admittedly not likely, Stephanie could have used that scalpel, but there's not necessarily evidence of that. All I'm doing is trying to express the number of things that could have happened that aren't inconsistent with the evidence. We also know, finally, that officers found that empty container of Stephanie's seizure medication at the family home in Delafield. And we heard Dr. Rochelle talk about the correlation between stressors and epileptic seizures. Perhaps Stephanie had a seizure or another medical event. We have our Waukesha County medical examiner, Dr. Shields' testimony. She examined the scene. She examined the clothing. She examined Stephanie. Excuse me. She examined the scene, she examined the clothing, she examined the body. After a year of investigating and testing, she provided her report. Though her initial impression was that Stephanie's life ended in those woods, she could not be certain where she died. She could not rule out strangulation or suffocation, though the hyoid bone was intact.
She can't be certain where
She could not rule out stabbing or other sharp object injuries.
Well, then somebody put her
She even
there.
said there were two small, or we even heard testimony that there were two small spots on Stephanie's
Which
shirt,
would mean
which
she
tested
was
positive for
murdered.
human blood. But there was not evidence of substantial blood loss or marks on the clothing, the skin, or the bones. She could not rule out an overdose or a medical death. She could not even rule out a car accident, though that's doubtful. Dr. Shields determined cause of death and manner of death was undetermined. This was affirmed by Dr. Truesdale, the state's death investigator, and this was affirmed by Dr. Hale. Again, there were thousands of emails and Skype messages, and the government picked some messages from 2021 and a few in early 2022 that demonstrate Matthew was unkind and at times downright mean towards Stephanie. This was especially true when he was discussing the misuse of her prescription medication. We also saw a few selections from Stephanie's journal, which were over a year prior to August of 2022. Matthew Pahl was private. Matthew Pahl was clearly paranoid. Matthew was at times less than kind, perhaps much less than kind with women, in particular Stephanie Pavlons. But being a bad boyfriend does not make him a murderer. In summer of 2022, we don't have any of those type of entries. We don't have those journal entries. Stephanie was freely and willingly going back and forth between the Delafield house and Matthew's
She did say
apartment.
she didn't like the way Matthew treated her.
Keep this in mind. Georgianne Pavlons testified, and she stated that she was not in any safety when she was with Matthew Pahl. All this testimony and all this evidence is your pantry full of ingredients. You have certain background facts, and those are like the items in the fridge. The government has tried their best to assemble the specific ingredients. They decided Matthew Pahl somehow killed Stephanie Pavlons. They have selected evidence to fit that theory. I sincerely hope that over the 7 days of testimony, you took good notes so that you're clearly aware of what was actually testified to. The state has baked what they want to be a chocolate cake. It doesn't look right and it doesn't taste right. You will have the right to review some of the evidence. If you want to see a video or picture or certain documents, you can ask. You can see the video of Matthew coming back to the Willow Park apartments after that appointment on August 23rd, 2022. No dirt, no sweat. He looks just like he does on any other day, and he acts just like he did on any other day. I do have a final note before I finish up. I assume at times during the trial and presentation of evidence, you observed Matthew Pahl talking to either Attorney Galaviz or I can tell you, he knows the evidence in this case probably better than me. I did not always like when he interrupted me, but he was passionate, and he pointed out when evidence was inconsistent with the evidence. Think about it.
When the evidence
If a
was
trial defendant
inconsistent
just
with the
acts quietly,
evidence,
people may make other assumptions. Matthew is fighting for his freedom. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you sit today in this case as 12 judges, 12 individuals who control the destiny of Matthew Pahl. You sit here today as the ultimate law enforcement officers. Please give this case your full attention, deliberation, and analysis. There is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
what though?
Though there has been significant proof that Mr. Pahl is innocent, he doesn't have to prove that. He doesn't have to prove anything. However, given the evidence and testimony, the state certainly has not satisfied their burden of proof with respect to the crimes charged.
Come on, Bill.
I'm confident you will render verdicts that will be consistent with good common sense and logic and find Matthew Pahl not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you.
You gotta go.
We can take it back to the safe table, please.
What do you want?
Go ahead, Mary.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a classic story of escalating domestic violence. We know that there was a history of domestic violence incidents between Mr. Pahl and Ms. Stephanie Pavlons. And we know that largely from her journals, because Ms. Stephanie Pavlon kept those journals in 2020 and 2021. Unfortunately, we did not find a journal from 2022. So I don't know what was happening in Stephanie's life in 2022, but we do know that on July 6th of 2020, she writes, "I feel trapped." July 9th of 2020, "Sick of being called every name in the book, no purpose but to be abused. He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde." On August 2nd of 2020, "I'm afraid of Matt, but have nowhere to go." September 2nd of 2020, "Scared to death of him, have no one." October 7th, 2020, she has a blown eardrum, a black eye, and you heard testimony that she went and saw an ENT. October 29th, "I'm going to end up 6 feet under." Those are just selections of different journal entries that Ms. Pavlons made. We know that Mr. Pahl was abusive, controlling, and violent. And we know that Mrs. Pavlons said she knew this was an unhealthy relationship. She doesn't know these details. She doesn't know the 100% of what detectives testified we learned. She didn't see text messages. She didn't see Ms. Pavlons' journal entries. She had no idea the violence was this bad. But as we know in domestic violence cases, domestic violence goes unreported. Victims of domestic violence don't tell their closest friends and family. It's humiliating. It's embarrassing. It's terrifying. The most dangerous time for a victim is when they decide that they're ready to leave. We know that there are significant size differences between Mr. Matthew Pahl and Ms. Stephanie Pavlons. She's tiny, petite, incredibly skinny. Mr. Pahl works out. He exercises regularly. He's healthy and fit and muscular. He's taller than her. He weighs more than her. Stephanie is Mr. Pahl's punching bag. Whenever he has a bad day, he makes sure she's going to have a bad day too, because he's not going to suffer alone. He wants her to hurt worse than he hurts. She's at a size disadvantage. She's scared to death of him. She can't fight back. He's bigger than her. He's stronger than her. He always gets his way. We don't know what fights are happening closer to August of 2022. There's no text messages between and keep a journal, probably because she's staying with Mr. Pahl. She's with him all the time since she's helping him with his foot injury. The defense made a really big deal about that date of August 8th when Ms. Pavlons came in.
Michelle or Ripples, one of you guys said she wouldn't have kept the journal. You were right.
We know that his truck returns at 2:34 p.m.
Lord, what?
Mr. Pahl walks in 4 minutes later at 2:38 p.m. Mr. Pahl exits and leaves the door ajar at 3 p.m. At 3:01 p.m., Ms. Pavlons walks in and her pants are wet. So for 30 minutes, Mr. Pahl had Ms. Pavlons sit in the car with her wet pants. He's humiliating her. He's embarrassing her. He's controlling her. Then at 3:27, he has the gall to send her a text message that says, "Your piss stain," along with a picture of the seat.
Stomach doesn't end at the time change.
How condescending, how degrading. Her partner of 23 years. So what can make someone lose their bladder? Dr. Hale told you, strangulation, suffocation. Within a matter of seconds, when someone's being strangled, they can lose their bladder. So either that day at OAW, maybe even in the parking lot, they get into an argument. He's really pissed at her. He's upset. He wants to let her have it. He grabs her neck. He strangles her. She's terrified. Terrified. She begins to lose consciousness, and then she loses her bladder. See, strangulation's all about power. It's all about power and control. Mr. Pahl is showing Stephanie that he holds the power. He's in control, not her. She doesn't get to make decisions. He does. He holds her life in his hands. Then, in another act of power and control, he makes her sit in the car. After he's done this to her, after she loses her bladder, he changes his shirt. He takes his time getting back down there to let her in because she's stuck. She can't get into the apartment without him. She knows that. He knows that. He knows that she's at his beck and call. She is completely reliant on Mr. Pahl. Between August 19th and August 23rd, we know that Stephanie and Sherlyn had been communicating. We saw from those messages with Sherlyn that
Yes,
made Mr.
Michelle,
Pahl
you were.
really angry. So angry that he stops communicating with Sherlyn altogether. He stops communicating with her via Skype, says, "I'm not getting into texting battles with you," and he only communicates via email. Again, just a little glimpse of his power and control over the women in his life. He's worried that Stephanie's going to ruin everything for him. Because like I said before, these girls in the Philippines, they don't know his whole life. He's told them selective details. They certainly don't know that he's living with a woman in his apartment. Yeah, Stephanie knows about these women. That's an element of the control. Mr. Pahl is rubbing that in her face. He's allowed to talk to these women. She's not. He's allowed to have girlfriends. She's not allowed to talk to anyone. This becomes a constant source of arguments, in addition to all the other little things that Mr. Pahl makes a big deal about. The other arguments that he starts, maybe about a missing pill or not having Ms. Pavlons do exactly what he wants when he wants. On August 23rd of 2022, Mr. Pahl and Ms. Pavlons leave the apartment. They go to Quick Trip. These arguments continue. It's just constant with Mr. Pahl. He's constantly badgering at her in her ear. He goes into his appointment, and while he's in there, Stephanie is just stewing. She's like, "I am sick of this. I'm done. I'm done with the violence. I'm done with the abuse. I don't want this anymore. I'm done with the controlling, manipulative behavior." She's ready to make a big change in her life. She's ready. It's not suicide. She's ready to dump the man that has abused her verbally, emotionally, and physically. By the end of that hour appointment, she's made up her mind. She's done. She's walking away. She doesn't want to be with him anymore. So she writes that note that's found in the car. And ladies and gentlemen, this note, this isn't a suicide note. She says, "I hate you. I hate being with you. All you care about is yourself. I'm not allowed to speak my mind around you, drive, spend money, or even feel good. Karma came back to you because your foot injury, not me. Go be with your virgin because I'm done, and keep the fucking money." That's not a suicide note. That's a breakup note. That's
That doesn't
I'm done
sound
with you.
anything like a
Goodbye.
suicide
Get
note.
out of here. I never want to see you again. So she writes this note. She leaves it on the driver's seat, and she's running out of time. She's got to get out of there. His appointment's almost over. He's going to be done with his appointment. She has to find a way out. So she gets out of the car. and she starts to walk away. She's like, I gotta be away from him. She knows she can't go into OAW, wait for her mom. That will definitely end in disaster. He sees her there and she's not in the car. You can guarantee he's yanking her out of there, taking her back into the car. She can't wait for her mom. She can't walk away. She can't walk down Gulf Road. He'll definitely come after her. He'll find her. He'll make her life even more miserable. So what does she do? She can't just sit there any longer. So she decides to walk towards that wooded area. She's probably thinking, hey, maybe I can go into the woods for some cover. Maybe I can walk over to a subdivision, call my mom. Maybe I can get to the golf course, call my mom. I just got to get out of sight. He can't see me leaving. But Mr. Pahl comes out of the appointment. She's run out of time. He sees her. He sees that she's not in the truck. He sees the note. Doesn't take very long to read this note. He reads it, and oh boy, he's mad.
I'm so sorry that
He's
happened
furious.
to you, Michelle. I
He
cannot
gets in his
imagine
truck,
living like
he
that.
drives, and he sees Stephanie. He drives up to that little curve in the driveway. He sees her walking towards that wooded area, and he goes after her. He gets out of the truck. He comes after her. He grabs her by the back of the shirt. That shirt's too big. He's pulling the shirt up at her neck. And there's a struggle just outside the area of the woods. Maybe Miss Pavlons is vaping. During that struggle, she drops her vape. Mr. Pahl continues to grab at her shirt. He's not letting her go. And then what happens? Mr. Pahl grabs her purse. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the murder weapon. He wraps this around her neck. He strangles her for just a minute or two. That's all it takes. She goes unconscious, and she's dead. He uses the strap of her own purse to kill her. See, Mr. Pahl, he couldn't let Miss Pavlons have the control. He couldn't let her walk away. He couldn't let her leave him. He's the man. She does what he wants, not the other way around. He couldn't let her walk away. Only he gets to decide when this relationship is done. And in the ultimate act of control, he takes her life from her. He drags her body just inside the wooded area. The purse strap has caused a ligature mark, a little bit of an abrasion, a scrape to her neck, a laceration. That's consistent with the evidence, that there's some blood on the neck of her shirt, that there's a lot of insect activity at her neck, down to her collarbone, all the way to the top of her head. It's also consistent with the evidence. Look at the way her body is positioned. Look at the way her arm is stuck in her shirt. As he's grabbing her by the shirt, she's struggling. She's trying to get away. Her arms are up by her ears. She's trying to get her arm out of her shirt. She's fighting for her life. And Mr. Pahl takes her life from her. He doesn't know how quickly her body's going to be found. He notices that there's an injury. He panics. He drops the scalpel right outside the woods, right where that struggle started. Thinking, maybe I can leave Stephanie to decompose and be eaten by insects, effectively hiding any evidence.
All of
that
this
we
is
have.
facts,
Effectively
not an evidence. Are they allowed to
making
do?
it very difficult for the medical examiner to provide a cause of death here. His actions and his actions alone are the reason that there's no DNA, no evidence of injury. And that's because of her advanced stage of decomposition. So what does he do next? He grabs the purse, he grabs the water bottle, he goes right to his truck, opens the bed of his truck, puts the purse and the water bottle in the bed of his truck, drives
You
off,
call your son the boy?
goes home, See, he didn't realize that by just being next to Stephanie at the time that she's deceased, and by using her purse, there could be a little bit of tissue left on the strap of the purse. That tissue decomposes. That tissue causes that odor that Canine Raven is trained to hit on. He returns to the apartment with her phone. He goes inside and he brings his water bottle in. The purse remains in the vehicle. From 10:33 to 10:53 a.m., that's plenty of time for Mr. Pahl to have killed Stephanie Pavlons. It takes just a minute or two to kill someone by strangulation. Not very long. Not very long at all. It's plenty of time to kill her, and when he gets back to the apartment, he goes about his life as if nothing has ever happened. When he comes inside the first time, he just brings in the water bottle, and he thinks, oh, I don't need to conceal this. I know I've carried this before. But he knows if he carries that purse in, that's going to look suspicious. So an hour and a half later, he comes back down. He brings the purse inside at 12:29. That purse has been inside his car since 10:53. Enough time for that odor of a decomposing human remains to be just at the tailgate, just at the bed of the truck, right where Raven hits. He puts the purse in a Walmart bag to try and conceal the purse, so we can't say that that's what comes into the apartment. But he doesn't do a good enough job, because we catch that. Detective Seitz, right away when he reviews the video, catches that. When he brings the purse in, he cleans it off, he puts it on a shelf, and then has this theory. Oh, I'm just going to say she walked off. I brought it back inside with me. I didn't know if she was going to come back. The evidence suggests otherwise. Over the next days and weeks, he uses Stephanie's phone. He searches her name because he's trying to cover his tracks. He's trying to figure out what law enforcement knows. Mr. Wolf said, well, she wasn't answering her messages. Yeah, she wasn't answering her messages because he had her phone. He knew that. She's very private because Mr. Pahl has isolated her. He brings in the purse on August 23rd. The defense doesn't dispute that he brings in the purse. That's exactly what happened. The defense said in their closing that they had 3 questions. How did she get from the cab of his truck to the wooded area? That, what I just told you, that explains it all. He didn't carry her. He had to drag her a short distance. He was certainly capable of doing that. His foot injury did not stop him from getting rid of the one person that had the ability to ruin everything for him. Because if Stephanie left and she got a hold of Sherlyn, she could unravel his whole fantasy life. He couldn't let her go. He couldn't let her ruin everything. He uses our Facebook account. He wants to be ready when the police come. He was ready with a story. He just wasn't as smart as the police. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is absolutely circumstantial, but it's overwhelming. The only reasonable explanation supported by all of the evidence is that Mr. Pahl was a violent and abusive partner. He kills Mrs. Pavlons because she was trying to leave him, something he certainly couldn't let happen. Everything that happens after 10:54 on August 23rd of 2022 demonstrates that this wasn't a suicide, this wasn't a seizure, this wasn't an accidental overdose, an intentional overdose. No, ladies and gentlemen, this was first-degree intentional homicide. Mr. Pahl caused the death of Miss Pavlons, and he concealed her body. I ask that you find the defendant guilty of both counts.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you are to decide this case fairly and impartially without fear or favor and without passion or prejudice. You are to decide only whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty of the offenses charged. Any consequences of your verdict are matters for the court alone to decide and must not affect your deliberations. The following 4 forms of verdict will be submitted to you concerning the charges against the defendant Matthew E. Pahl. As to count 1 reading, we the jury find the defendant Matthew E. Pahl guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information. Another reading, we the jury find the defendant Matthew E. Pahl not guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 1 of the information. As to count 2, another reading, we the jury find the defendant Matthew E. Pahl guilty of hiding a corpse as charged in count 2 of the information. Another reading, we the jury find the defendant Matthew E. Pahl not guilty of hiding a corpse as charged in count 2 of the information. It is for you to determine whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty of each of the offenses charged. You must make a finding as to each count of the information. Each count charges a separate crime, and you must consider each one separately. Your verdict for the crime charged in one count must not affect your verdict on any other count. This is a criminal, not a civil case. Therefore, before the jury may return a verdict which may be legally received, the verdict must be reached unanimously. In a criminal case, all 12 jurors must agree in order to arrive at a verdict. When you retire to the jury room, select one of your members to preside over your deliberations. The presiding juror's vote is entitled to no greater weight than the vote of any other juror. If you need to communicate with the court while you're deliberating, send a note through the bailiff signed by the presiding juror. To have a complete record of the trial, it is important
I don't know
that
this
you communicate
one.
with the court only by written note. If you have questions,
The other
court will
ones
talk
I
with
would
the
say
attorneys before
today,
answering,
but
so it
this
may
one
take some time.
could be a not
You should
guilty or a
continue
hung
your
jury, so I don't
deliberations while you're
know.
waiting for the answer.
Because
The court will answer any questions in
I'm
writing
not
or orally here in
sure
open
that
court.
they
When
proved
you've
it
agreed
beyond a
upon your
reasonable
verdict,
doubt.
have it signed and dated by the person you've selected to preside. After you reach a verdict, the presiding juror will notify the bailiff that a verdict has been reached. Everyone will return to the
There
courtroom.
is.
The verdict will be read into the record in open
I mean,
court, and the court may ask
can
each
see
of
it
you if you agree
from the
with
way
the
they
verdict.
painted it, but
Ladies and gentlemen, at this
it's
juncture,
also facts not
we are going to
evidence.
swear in our bailiff, and then after that, I'll advise you of the 2 alternate jurors who will be excused, and I'll ask you to follow Mike's directions. Alternate, even though you are alternates, please don't discuss with anyone. We'll tell you that if you're welcome to stay, whoever you are, to wait to see if there's a verdict, or you can let the bailiff know and we'll either call you or let you know the results, or you can be here by phone when the verdict comes back. So if you could swear in the bailiff, please.
Do you swear that you will keep the jurors sworn on this trial in a quiet and convenient place? You will suffer no communication with them except upon order of the court. That you will not report to any person the state or result of their deliberation until they have agreed upon a verdict, return to the court, and report it. So help you God.
I do. All right, sir, here's the jury instructions and verdict forms. And alternates are, I'm going to ask when I read your name to raise your hand, Diane Badalski and Steve Hayes. All right, folks, again, thank you so much. I know this is a disconcerting moment when you're all of a sudden separated from everyone you spent a number of days with. I assure you we thank you and respect the time you've spent.
Well, it's
not
like the Linda
wasted
Sturmer
time. It's
case.
important to have the all.
Remember the woman that burnt the house
Anything from the
down?
state before I release the jurors?
No, Judge.
Anything from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
All right, very good. You can go with Mike and follow his directions, please.
the woman that their house burnt down, and then she
All right, the jurors,
then
have a
she
seat,
hit her
everybody.
husband with the car or the
Anything
van,
before we
whatever.
stand down from the state?
No, Judge.
Anything from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Then, folks, please stay in the vicinity. This has been a long trial, and
No,
I
not
expect
the
there
burning
may
van.
very well be some questions from the jurors, at least about what.
It was a recent
evidence
trial we
they may
did.
see. So please remain in the area.
It
and
was-
report to our clerk with your cell phone numbers, okay? All right, let's stand down. Thank you.
It was the trial where we met Ken, because he watched the verdict with us. He didn't watch the trial with us, but he watched the verdict. And we were all like, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And he was like, oh no, I disagree. Tell me why you think not guilty. And I thought, oh great, I got a new person watching and we're going to lose him right off the bat. And so I explained to him we are guilty. And we discussed it. And I guess he respected that, we weren't rude and stuff. You know how people are. And they're wrong, you're an idiot, blah blah blah. Like, we had a discussion about why we thought not guilty, and he was like, oh no, I think she did it because such and such, and I was like, well, I don't think they proved it. I think, yeah, she probably did it, but how do you have proof? We don't know how the fire started. I don't remember what your first one was. It was, I don't even remember what state that one was in. Judy remembers everything. She had been tried once for and found guilty, but then they let her out. She was being tried again, but it wasn't double jeopardy, and I forgot the reason why it wasn't double jeopardy. Judy, I need help because I don't remember. But they had lived in this house for years. She had, I think, 2 daughters from a previous marriage. And they had 2 sons. And then they adopted, I think it was her nephew. So so the girls were grown. They had the 3 boys at home. And they got in a fight. And they supposedly were going to talk about splitting up. So she woke the boys up and gave them money and told them to go to the movies. And then she wouldn't even let them tell their dad goodbye. And then the house caught on fire. And they both got out of the house. She went to the back of the house, got in the van, drove around to the front of the house, and her husband ran out of the house on fire, and she hit him with the van. And he died. But he didn't die from getting hit with the van. He died from the fire. And there was circumstantial evidence that she was the one that set the house on fire. But there was no direct evidence that she set the house on fire. And they had lived in a house before that had burned down. So I thought, well, there's no direct evidence. He could have, if he set the other one on fire, he could have set this one on fire. He's doing it like for insurance. How can a conviction be overturned on appeal and then tried again, though? Michigan sounds right. So anyways, so we all said, because it was mostly circumstantial, we don't know. And then part of the evidence was she took the station wagon. I think it was a station wagon. And it was some kind of a hatchback, because she took it to the gas station. And when she got gas, but instead of filling the car with it, she had it through the hatchback. So presumably filling a gas can or something. and there was a gas can found in the front lawn. But other witnesses said that there were gas cans. It was a farm, so there was gas cans. Oh, amended charges. So she was tried on different charges, not the original charges. See, that's weird. So just like that other the I don't even remember what that one was called. The kid that got off on, I can't even think right now. Self-defense. The one that I didn't watch because it was a knife fight and I didn't like the video, and now he's going to be tried again, so I'm probably going to end up doing that trial too. So then when the verdict came in, I put a thumbnail for the verdict and everything, and then I guess Ken had been watching the trial with somebody else and he just came in to watch the verdict with us, and we were all like, not guilty, not guilty. And he was like, what? And so we had this great big discussion with Ken. That's how we met Ken. Great big discussion with him about why we were all saying guilty. Yes, you probably did it, but there was no proof. There's no correlation whatsoever about how. So, just like this, there's no. I don't know, man. I said not guilty on that one, even though I still thought very plausible. But this one, I feel the opposite, and maybe it's because I'm a woman and I see how abusive he was to her, which makes me feel really bad about myself. That she was a woman and I said not guilty, and now this is a guy and I'm saying I think it's not personal, Wiggles. I was embarrassed because this was my channel and I was saying a very likely guilty person was not guilty, and he was coming in and he was probably right, and I was trying. Never mind. I love you. It was more of a, oh crap, I done messed up. I know you're playing. But it was, yeah, that's why I remember, because that was the feeling was, oh crap, I done messed up. Because there's very few people that have found my channel that, like, I don't know where. Michelle, did you just find me or did you know me from another channel? I think you just found me. See, Wiggles I knew from Biggins. Judy I knew from Biggins. Marty I knew from Biggins. Jill I knew from Biggins. Everybody here I knew from Biggins. I think Nichelle found me. Carla Rowley. Carla Beltane. Everybody. Biggins. So that's kind of how I remembered, because I was like, this guy just chanced upon me. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I love that you guys started watching me because of Biggin, but I'm just saying that's why I remember him. That between the, oh, this guy just found me and I done messed up. Marty, don't say it like that. That's mean. Why isn't he on anymore anyway? Oh, I don't know what's going on. Because like I told you, hopefully I just had a bad month and it'll go back to normal. I don't know what's happening. Because I was like, well, you need to do something different. What different? It's a trial. Maybe there's just no exciting trials right now and everybody's bored to tears. I kind of am. And there's not been, since Casotis, there's not really been any good trials. His trial was really good. I mean, we're still talking about it, right, Wiggles? Everything is Jim did it. Yeah, Carla, I think you found me. Oh, I wouldn't have you at all if he was still on. I was shocked the first time I saw your name pop up in my chat. I was like, oh my God, Marty's here. I'm shocked. Well, I love each and every one of you, and I'm glad that you're here. Between the pain in my knee and just my numbers being scraped. But the weird thing is, my views are the same. My watch hours are up. My subscriptions are down. So I don't know why that graph, like it's steadily going up, and then October's like down here. I don't understand. But these trials are boring. I've not got, like after, well, it started going up with Karen Reed. And then after the Karen Reed trial, I was getting like 12, 13, 14 people, like peak viewership. And then yesterday, I think I had 7 was the most. So bad thing. What? I don't remember what I just said. I am in so much pain. I've got to take a break at some point because I told Judy this the other day. I didn't tell you guys yet. There's something going on. I don't know what it is. My foot keeps swelling. Just one foot. And it's on the same leg that's where my bad knee is. So I don't know if the foot is swelling because of the knee. And then I also noticed Sunday, although I was in a scooter, I wasn't walking the whole time, but when I did walk, my ankle hurt really bad. So I don't know if my ankle is why my foot's swelling, my knee is why my foot's swelling. I don't know. And I'm still trying to get the thing for my back scheduled. So what I'm going to, at some point, I'm going to have to take at least an afternoon off to try to make all these phone calls because I've been playing phone tag with all these people that schedule appointments. How's my face? What do you mean, how's my face? I'm 3 years I've been doing this. Well, the first 2 years was videos. And then a little over a year now has been the live streaming. What do you mean, how's my face? What are you going to say about me now, Marty? I'm ready. I'm braced. Bring it on. Yeah, my watch hours are up. So as long as my watch hours are up, I guess that's good. Well, so they've got, what, 2 hours, hour and a half before. Well, no, they might stay after. You think they'll stay after 5 to deliberate? Or you think Billy hasn't been like picky about wanting to get out early or anything like that, or they haven't seemed to be. So I guess I'll go ahead and let you guys go and just keep an eye out for the notification if they're back tonight. I will throw up I'll throw up a feed real quick and we'll watch it. So I love you guys. Thank you for being here. And it is only a hobby, but still, you know, you want to see it. You want to see your channel grow. I mean, like, I've been doing this for over a year now, and I got 5 people in here right now. I love. So, okay, guys, be kind to people, love your family, and Jesus loves you, and so do I. I hope I feel better too, Carla. My knee. I wish you guys could see my knee. I've got one normal-looking knee and one gigantic, and it's excellent. It's misshapen because it's just, you know, the cartilage and the arthritis and it's misshapen, and I fear it's time to get a new knee, and I don't want to do that yet. But the last time I got a shot in it for the pain, my pain management doctor was like, you know, this is only like a Band-Aid, right? Like, you need something done with this. I'm like, I know. So yeah, when this is over, like tomorrow, if we're still waiting for a verdict tomorrow, we're waiting. If we're waiting for a verdict tomorrow, we can finish up Brooks, and then sometime tomorrow, I will try to start working on my appointments because I'm tired of phone tag these people. I hate waiting. I hate being on hold, but if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. So, because this has been like 2 weeks. How long have I been telling you guys I need to reschedule my back procedure? And I've just been playing phone tag. So, okay. I will see you guys verdict or in the morning at 8. So have a great night. Bye, guys. My shoulder's great. Oh, we're gone now. Are you still? No, we're still live. Never mind. I was like, oh, you can't hear me. Yeah, my shoulder replacement worked great. So I asked when I got my checkup, my yearly checkup, I said, do you do knees too? And he goes, no, I don't. Because I was like, if your shoulder replacements work as great as knee replacements, then yeah, I'm gonna get the knee replacement as soon as I can. But he goes, no, I don't do knees. So, but my primary doctor said that he's had his knee replaced, and I think he's younger than me. And he said it was great. He was up walking with the knee replacements because they use a robot, and they know exactly how the little space or whatever that they have to cut out to put the replacement in. The robot knows exactly how much to cut for your size and everything for your knee. So he said he was up walking on it the very next day. And I was like, oh my God. Because I remember when I was a teenager, my other knees replaced, and I visited her in the hospital, and there's a big machine they put on her knee that, no, I didn't. It wasn't hurting that bad at the time. At the time, it was just like, I know I'm going to have to do this in the future. So now I have to go to him and say, now I need a reference for the knee. Isn't that always the way? That's always the way, right? Yeah. So now I have to go and say, my foot is swelling. Although, you know, I'm afraid he's going to be like, no, we need to run you through all the cardiac tests and stuff, because that's something else that could be going on with a swollen foot. So, I don't know. I hope that's not it. I don't think that's it. I got shaky today before lunch, and I was like, great, now what? And I checked my blood sugar, and my blood sugar was fine. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just hungry, so I'll just eat. I didn't feel that hungry, but I was shaky. So like, my blood sugar was 105, which is perfect. I was like, maybe it's just like, I never know. This is why I'm on disability, you guys, because I never know. It's one thing or another all the time. It's like, just, I'm not dependable. You can't give me a scheduled job because I'm not dependable. You guys are the reason I'm here no, Wiggles is the reason I'm here every day. She would give me 2 hours of time. I do it for you, Wiggles. Next time you complain, remember that. I do it for you. Okay, guys. I will see you in the morning.